Welcome to the PHNX Wildcats show, brought to you by DraftKings. This number one sportsbook app going right there. I am merely Mike Luke, joined by the great one, William Brad Alice. All right, William, you were up at a Chiefs game, right? Last against the Cardinals. Tell us about that first.
Well, let's just say it's a better game day experience than Arizona Stadium was, unfortunately. Went to Chiefs game, had bought my wife as a Chiefs fan. That's why we're together. Long story that we'll tell on a July podcast someday. Mm-hmm. But bought her tickets to the Cardinals Chiefs game for her birthday. By the time we get there, we had already had to cancel one parking permit, get another one. We're on hold with a certain ticket broker that doesn't sponsor this network, and I think I'm going to use that one from now on to get it replaced. At the last second, she's like, "I want better tickets. See what you can find." I sat row 3 for not.
Were you next to anybody important?
In front of us during warm-ups, we saw the brother of my favorite person in the world who I'm not related to. That is Patrick Mahomes' brother and wife. They were what you would think they were doing, taking photos. He was taking photos of her. She's whatever. She has her businesses and stuff. But the one thing I realized from sitting that close to the field, I have been around elite recruits. I've seen, you name an NBA player that's been in the league more than 10 years, I've seen him in person. Orlando Brown may be the largest human being I've ever seen in person.
He's the largest person I've ever seen is Calais Campbell, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, Orlando Brown's about 6'8", 330.
Right.
I will tell you this: Carlos Dunlop may be the most. He's about 6'7". He looks like a power forward out there. Orlando Brown looks like he eats peasants. I mean, it's
he looks like he eats Mike Luke and Brad Alice.
He's a giant, yeah. And there's some other guys who are much thicker. Tershawn Wharton, Kalen Saunders are like toasters with legs, but it was a lot of fun. Obviously, as a Chiefs fan, it was a lot of fun. Cardinals did a really good job. I will say that some of their game day prep people who could have made life miserable. We had I don't want to get the guy in trouble. We had a bag for our binoculars. He's like, "Can you take the binoculars out, put the bag in your pocket?" No problem. Right. So didn't have to go back to the car. Some of the event staff played by the rules, but still were like letting kids take pictures of the field without, you can't stand here, but you can stand here, take your picture. So really good job by the Cardinals. I wish I could say as much about the U of A. It was a little bit rough.
Well, let's talk about on the field first. So a lot of people, Mississippi State, first and foremost, is a good team. They're not a great team, but that looks like, that's what a team that is ranked 20th in the nation should probably look like. Again, they feel like they're somewhere in there. And Arizona, the one thing that I keep going back to, and I keep going back to over and over again, is that last year's Arizona team would have lost 56-0 with this performance. Yeah. Arizona did not play well, and they were still down one score driving late in the third quarter. So the margin for error for this squad is significantly higher than it was even at this point last year.
If Arizona played a cleaner game, they have a chance to win. Now, let me preface this. If Arizona plays a clean game, Mississippi State plays a clean game, Mississippi State wins by about the same score.
Correct.
But Arizona had the turnovers. Arizona had Jayden de Laura deciding not to run, pulling a Khalil Tate. The bad sack, some drops, a bizarre penalty. I don't remember Arizona ever being called for, the not being set for one full second.
Right.
Which was, by the way, the absolute right call. Like, they ran up to the line and they snapped it. So if you take out half of those, Arizona's got a chance to win. And let's be honest, Arizona was down even 2 scores midway fourth. If they could convert anywhere, maybe that's a different game. It wasn't. That being said, Mississippi State's better. And Mississippi State, but they're not, they're about the spread. They're probably about a 12-point better team if all things are even. Their biggest advantage is, frankly, experience.
Mm-hmm.
I did not realize they had that many starters back or that many snaps back. I knew how many starters, but I didn't know how many snaps back. They're better. Their offensive line is really good. But it did dominate Arizona. They rushed, but not well. I'll tell you where I think the biggest difference was. I think it was speed on the edges. Our U of A's tackles had a lot of trouble with those defensive ends.
Well, and that's where I was going to go to. We talked about it before the season that I was curious to see, because again, we've heard it a lot, and I'm not, demeaning the kid, but I was curious to see how good Jordan Morgan was against, upper level competition right there. And I've seen him in Marana. He just never struck me as a big time recruit. Strikes me as a guy that you bring in, but seeing him on all these awards lists, watch lists, surprised me a little bit. But I think you're right. I think Arizona's problem is that it just looked like off the edges and even in the interior a little bit. Mississippi State just looked quicker. They looked more explosive than what Arizona had.
And that's what you're advertising on. We kind of said this. I think I said on your show. I know I said it on my ill-fated loss to the computer crash podcast, which I have now recovered, but a little too late. We know they have SEC athletes. Do they have SEC football players? And they're kind of somewhere in between. I think if Jordan Morgan goes against a lot of defensive ends from the Pac-12, especially not the rush ends, but the contain ends, he'll be fine. These guys were just fast, and the other tackles struggled with it. And I'm guessing those two defensive tackles, I don't know how big they were. I know they're in the 290 to 305 range.
Right.
But they're going to be about 0.2 of a second, probably faster than most teams Arizona will face. And that's just the SEC for you. But again, their offensive line was good, but it didn't dominate. It's not like they ran the ball effectively early, then they didn't. They passed well, but realistically, if Mississippi State doesn't have 4 short fields,
right?
4 of their 7 scores were on short fields. One was the opening drive. Arizona adjusted. One was the opening drive of the second half. Arizona adjusted a little bit. And then the last long drive was the last one of the game when Arizona was gassed.
Right. Emotionally
and physically. So I thought the defense couldn't make many big stops, but they did a good job. If you're looking at the defense, probably had a B- C+ type game. The offense, not quite as good. But the defense was decent, and defense probably played well enough to win in other games when Arizona's not giving the ball up at the 40, when Arizona's not having a 20-yard punt. Arizona's better than they were last year, and that's all we can ask. Again,
they're markedly.
We wanted 3.5 wins. We wanted 4 wins. This looks like a 4-win football team.
And Brad, they're markedly better. They're not just. It's not just a situation where you're like, maybe marginally better. There's clearly a real talent imprint there that I wanted to get to in just a second. But let me tell you about Four Peaks Brewery right here, the official brew of PHNX. This Saturday, September 18th. Arizona Cardinals watch party at Four Peaks. You can enjoy great drink specials, Cardinal ticket giveaways, and a 220-inch screen experience. Check out our link in the description. Must be 21 or older. Enjoy responsibly.
Shout out to Four Peaks. I tried to get a Four Peaks at an establishment in Glendale. They were changing out kegs because they had sold out.
Right. Well, I'm telling you, it's good stuff.
Yeah. I never ended up getting one, unfortunately, because they took a little too long to change out that keg. But hey, they were sold out 2 hours before the game.
We were at the tap and bottle remote, and they were handing out Four Peaks. A lot of Four Peaks fans out there. So yes, Brad, you're right, as always. Okay, but let's talk about on the defensive side of the ball, though. I thought that the defense was, if you were to tell me that they were going to give you that performance before the game, I would have taken it. And what I mean by that is, you had a team where, yes, Will Rogers, great name, by the way, but Will Rogers, who threw for 300 yards, but he did it on 39 completions. So again, 8 yards a pop. Cool, I get it. It stays ahead, but it's not like they broke you that way. You gave up 100 yards on the ground. Quite frankly, if I were to tell you before this game that Arizona would give up 400 yards of total offense, Brad, I would have taken it.
Again, I think the thing is, you look at that was that's what Mike Leach's team did. And again, the good news is Arizona only gave up 100 on the ground. They didn't give up 150 to 200.
Right.
They didn't give up big plays. They didn't give up big plays, really.
Right.
At least when it mattered. They only gave up the 2 long drives, and this Leach team loves long drives. This is not a quick strike offense. This is a dink and dunk offense. And again, Arizona on 4 of the 7 scores were short field, and they held them to field goals twice. Again, it wasn't a dominant defense. We're not going to pretend that. It wasn't it was a good performance, though. Because again, if the offense is matching, and that's, everyone said it was going to be time of possession. No, it's the stat to look at that they don't actually put up. I think we got to start telling this is offensive efficiency. Arizona, unfortunately, where they score on 3 of their drives.
Right.
They scored on 7. I don't care if Arizona had scored 6 times on 8 plays and got beat 50-10 on time of possession, fine. But you need to be, and they weren't efficient. Again, they took the sack that prevented the field goal. They stalled at a couple times forward out in their territory after turnovers when you were chasing points. That was the bigger problem in the game because, again, you only gave up 3 long touchdown drives. Now, again, in a perfect world, if you're an elite team, you're only giving up 1. Alabama may not give up 3 to them. But you're not Alabama. You're trying to become Mississippi State. That's the next. Right now, Arizona, and apologies to Lawrence, Kansas, because you're going to disagree with me. Right now, Arizona is Kansas. They are Vanderbilt. They are Boston College. Now you got to get to becoming Mississippi State, Texas Tech, Purdue. Then you can think about being
taking that next rung and getting into that upper echelon.
No, you're never going to be USC. I'm sorry, Arizona fans, you're not. You can't do that anywhere. But you can be what Va Tech was 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. You can be what again. Can you be
what Va Tech was under the heyday of Frank Beamer?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Because people forget when I was a kid, Va Tech was bad.
Right.
It was a bad program. Kansas State would sometimes not win more than 2 games in a 4-year stretch.
Bill Snyder, by the way, the most underrated college football coach in history.
Absolutely. So that's what Arizona has to want to be, is a team that can win 9-10. But to be that, you first have to become a team that can win 5 or 6. And then you have to become a team that can win 7 or 8. Maybe you can jump ahead. But right now, Arizona's going from, again, the doldrums to competitive. And again, credit Kansas, because Kansas is 2-0. And then, they had a basketball score in their game against West Virginia. They're going to be lucky to score that many against Huggy Bear. But that's what Arizona has to be. And I think Mississippi State is a great measuring stick.
Right.
Because under Leach, Mississippi State, and even to an extent under Mullen for a while, that was an 8 or 9 win program. Some of that smoke and mirrors with scheduling, but that's what Arizona. And so they measured up, and they're probably 5 players short.
Yes, and let's talk about the passing situation here. First of all, I want to caution people that this is one game. Jayden de Laura was bad. There's no way around it. My biggest problem with him was he looked a little bit like Khalil Tate, the bad Khalil Tate, where you have 20 yards in front of you and you don't decide to take it. You decide to just chuck it into the end zone or whatever. That to me didn't make any sense. But the other stuff I can chalk up to just being a bad game. And again, when you look at it, Brad, this is a guy that's got a long track record here. He's got a Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, lit up San Diego State. So the people that are talking about a quarterback change right now, and that's not a straw man argument. There's real people out there saying that. It's one game, guys. It's one game. The odds are he's probably going to come back against North Dakota State and look really good.
Yeah. First and foremost was his decision not to run. And I saw one person saying they thought he had a leg injury. I don't know. He moved really well. I mean, he did a fantastic job to stay alive in the pocket. That was phenomenal. Right. Secondly, they're worried about him getting killed downfield. He had a lot. I honestly think he probably had 70 or 80 yards rushing in that game if he takes off and slides. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have to take a hit because once he got by that pass rush, which he did very well, all he had was DBs. There were no linebackers. It was. Again, some of those he wouldn't have gotten the first. I see what he's trying to do. Others, you got to take off and run. You got to take 7, 8, 9, because it might be 15. The other thing is in person, it looked like he had a hitch in his throw for part of the game. He almost looked like he was pushing the football instead of.
That was noticeable from the press box as well.
And I was a few rows lower, but yeah, I did not notice that against San Diego State.
Right.
I will even say later in the game, it seemed to have gone when he got in that rhythm. When he complete 6-7 in a row, and then we can talk about then the decision to bring Joyner back in. The hitch appeared to have disappeared. So I don't know if maybe he got hit early and the shoulder was stiff and had to wait for it to loosen up. I don't know if he was just pressing and was pushing it. It's like a pitcher when they start aiming instead of just throwing.
Right, instead of just throwing, right.
That might have been all it is. It might have been an injury. It might have been, who knows, but it was noticeable. And I didn't notice that before. So, again, he might have taken a hit early we don't know about, was just kind of out of sorts. It does unfortunately happen. Again, if you're calling – now, I will say this. I do have a slight concern. We saw Gunnar Cruz play really well in week 1 and fall off the table. I don't think that's going to happen, but could Jed Fish be a guy who with 3 weeks to prep gets their quarterbacks a little more ready? Again, I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm going to be honest here. Instead of being all sunshine,
right, for sure.
I really need to see Jayden de Laura play better next week.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Because, again, I do have that. I still can't explain what happened to Gunnar Cruz. I don't know how you throw for 287 against BYU and then look like you've never played football before against San Diego State when there's not that big a difference between teams. But again, I don't really have that concern, but it's what was it like? It was like when, Arizona basketball kept losing first round games and then they won. And then you're like,
and it's like, all of a sudden it's like, all right, is this,
but I want to see it again. And then the next year they lost to Miami of Ohio and then they didn't lose again for like 6 or 7 years. Right. But so I have that fear, and that's probably just me being irrational.
I've got some good news to break right here. A couple house cleaning or some inventory right here. First of all, I'm going to tell you about Tap and Bottle. This is the place. They're going to host every single AZ Wildcats podcast watch party for all away football and basketball games. And you can head down to their downtown location to meet me, enjoy the food trucks, Four Peaks Brew giveaway. And again, next watch party is going to be the next away game, not this week, but next week. There's a good chance that Uncle Kev will be making his debut here October 15th. So we're going to hold Uncle Kev to that, but we'll keep you certainly up to date on that one. And one other thing that I tell about real quick, Gametime. Now, Gametime is the hottest new ticketing site that makes it easier than ever to score the best deals on tickets, sports, concerts, shows. Brad could have used that yesterday.
I should have.
Save up to 60% on tickets when you buy tickets last minute. It's great for you, procrastinators, your William Brad Alice's of the world, your Mike Lukes. And if you love PHNX and you love Gametime, the best way to support us is by buying your tickets through the link in the description. All right. I want to talk a little bit about T-Mac here. I don't like how because again, we're not going to be all flowers and sunshine here. I don't like how they use T-Mac right now. It feels to me like, unless Noah Fafita's in the game, which we're going to get to, that T-Mac is just kind of this, well, we're just going to throw it up to him. He's just going to be a jump ball type guy when it doesn't feel like he's being used as a normal receiver would be used. Do you see any of that or no?
You don't, I also say this. When they did throw like a normal receiver, he had a couple bad drops.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
He's an 18-year-old kid playing college football. We put a lot of pressure on. But yeah, there were others where there was the one that was the pick that got called back. It appeared he ran the wrong route because de Laura made a beeline for him and started yelling at him. Or de Laura screwed up. And so I need to see more. I think one thing I would like to see, especially with young receivers, is get them some easy throws. Run the slant, run a quick out. Even if you're only going to pick up 3, just let them get the hand on the ball, take the light hit. And it's the same thing with some of the other guys. I want to see them run some, for lack of a better word, easier plays for Speedy Luke. I want to see.
Look, you mentioned
crazy enough, I think Jonah Coleman's first carry might have been on a 4th and 1.
Right. You mentioned,
I'm not, again, I like doing that for quarterbacks too. Get them some rhythm throws.
All right, Speedy Luke. I think Arizona is still trying to figure out what to do with him. My question is this: why isn't he returning kicks?
I think they're worried about him getting hit. He's so small.
Yeah, all right.
Now, I will say this: that's always the excuse why you can't use your star players on kick returns. When's the last time you remember a kick returner getting hurt for the season? Well, right, exactly, and it doesn't really happen. It's always the guys blocking.
Right, and it's not like he's being used prominently on the offensive side. I figured when they signed him, I figured to myself, yeah, he's going to be that kick returner. I mean, DeAnthony Thomas didn't get into Oregon, and they just said, you know what, you're too small, because they're the same size coming in. They didn't say, you know what, you're too small, we're not going to do this. This is also, too, a little bit why I caution to people against the Trung candidate Speedy Luke comparison. We're big fans of Speedy Luke on this show. Fam, only player on the team that we call fam here. But Trung candidate was a bigger dude. He was 205 pounds. Speedy's probably about 165. So, yes, he's fast, but I never saw the Trung comparison, to be honest with you.
No, he's not. Like I said, Dennis is a slightly better. Really, you're going back to guys like Thomas, Steptoe, and even those guys were bigger. I mean, right. Cedric Steptoe was a thick individual maybe by his sophomore year. But we've seen undersized guys, and it's not his height. He's short. But so is Jonah Coleman. But Jonah Coleman's 220. It's thickness. It's muscle. And even then, I've seen a lot of people. This guy only weighs 3 pounds more than he did last year. Yeah, but I haven't seen enough pictures of Speedy Luke in street clothes to know how much muscle does he have on. My guess is they think he's too slight to take a lot of contact, which is fine. But to me, yeah, run him on a punt return and run him to the sideline. Use him as a deep threat, assuming he can catch. Put him in the slot and run him deep and see if you can't get him behind the defense. Use him as a decoy. So I think there are things you can do. Now, my guess is right now you're still just trying to still implement your offense the way you want it. You're figuring out how to get Jacob Cowing the ball more consistently. You're trying to figure out how to get T-Mac the ball. You're trying to figure out how to juggle carries. So maybe game planning for Speedy Luke's low on your list of priorities, but it's something you need to figure out because, again, he's a potential weapon. But there's some other guys they've barely gotten the ball that are potential weapons. So they're still not spreading the ball around as much as I'd like them to. All
right. Somebody just messaged me right now and asked this, Brad, and we're going to see if we can get you to commit to this on air. We might not be able to, but we're going to see. Will you change your background to back the A if they win this week? Be 2-1 going into conference play.
Like the background on the
back the A.
Or on my Twitter. I changed it on Twitter already.
Oh, is it on Twitter? Is it back the A?
I did it Friday before the first game. I just want to make you sweat. I think, unless I did it wrong. You got to remember, I'm an old man.
Brad, I didn't know this. I apologize.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, my background's back the A. Yeah.
Okay, well,
I was waiting for you to call me out.
Right.
And I was going to make – but no, I did it Friday before the San Diego State game just to make you sweat.
Brad, you're a leader of men. That's why we like you so much on this show.
Yeah. No, I already did it. I think with this background, I'm like, I don't know how to change background. I'm sitting on my couch because the cool room with all the cool stuff on the walls too crowded with a puppy kennel.
No. Well, North Dakota State. All right, Brad, I apologize. You were the man. I should have expected this. North Dakota State now. I get the point spread came out. It's a very close point spread. I think it's like 2 points or something. I am still of the belief, though, that as good as North Dakota State is, and I totally get it, you put in NFL quarterbacks. I get all of that. I believe that you should still be able to beat North Dakota State at home.
Really, NFL? I mean, I know they got 2 and Arizona has 1, but I mean,
top 5. All right, how about this? Top 5 picks that maybe shouldn't have been top 5 picks. How about that?
Carson Wentz and Trey
Lance.
Want to know, Trey Lance. But again, Arizona has had Nick Foles and who was it back in the 30s? I mean,
yeah, there was, yes.
One of the buildings is named. I can't remember which.
Yeah, for sure. If you get the NFL as a quarterback at the U of A, you get a building named after you. That's how we do it around here.
I want to know where the Foles Center is. So,
right.
No, but you know what? Look, this is a good team. And I know those stat they've won 7 in a row, 10 total against FBS opponents. They also haven't played an FBS opponent since 2016.
Right.
So other than transfers on this squad who have played at the FBS level, none of them's played an FBS team. They certainly haven't. If you looked at the list of teams they beat, there's some good teams in there.
No doubt.
They're all Midwest games, though.
Right.
They've beaten Iowa. I think it's Iowa State, Minnesota. Good. So should Arizona be afraid? Absolutely. You lost to NAU last year, and that was not a good team.
Right.
But this is a unique challenge now for NDSU too. They have to again make that long trip. Something they're, I know looking at it that they've made the trip to Eastern Washington, I think twice. But other than that, they don't venture real far from home till the postseason. And they shouldn't. It's a budget thing. I mean, this team, again, they have to budget. They're going to be taking on athletes that they're not used to. Arizona, I think, has proven that their lines are pretty good and legit. So, again, do I understand the lines? Sure. Do I think North Dakota State can win? Yeah, I do. But I'm not trembling.
Right. Last year, if we had last year's roster,
Mississippi State to me was the team that was most likely to beat Arizona of the three, and they did. So let's see what Arizona can do. But Arizona can, yeah. To me, it would still be considered a bad loss if they lose this game.
Yeah,
horrible loss, no, but it would be like not as bad as maybe losing to Colorado last year, but
But I believe the talent level is at a level now where Arizona should win that. One thing that I need though from the Wildcats is, and we talked about this all off season, and certainly showed against San Diego State. I need the wide receivers to play better. The wide receivers have to be the strength of this team. And when you have 6 drops or whatever the case may be, especially against a team that's better than you, that just can't happen. The guys on this team, especially those starting receivers, are more than good enough. Cowing, Singer, and T-Mac, they've got to, if they can get their hands on the ball, they got to be able to catch it, Brad.
Yeah, and you've got to take advantage. And I haven't looked at North Dakota State's lineups. I don't know how big their linebackers and safeties are, but I'm guessing Tanner McLaughlin is going to be a matchup nightmare. He looks like he has NFL size out there. I don't think he's an NFL player, but size. So you get him posted up on because some of their linebackers, my guess, are going to be more like 5'10" instead of 6'1". Arizona has to, and where the difference should be in this game is depth. Remember, they only have 60 some odd scholarships, and depending on weather, it could be hot and humid, or just hot. So Arizona needs to really, take advantage. Now, Arizona depth is probably about the same when you factor in the amount of guys who probably shouldn't be on an Arizona roster. But that's what I want to see Arizona do is, use the running game, use the short passing game, use that defensive rotation to really wear down a team that, again, their top 22 may not be significantly different than Arizona's top 22. But if 23 to 50 is not better for Arizona, then you've got a real problem.
All right. I wanted to talk a little bit of Arizona hoops, right? By the way, let's get a prediction. What do you think for Arizona?
Like 38-31.
38-31. Okay, I agree with that. I'm in there. Let's talk a little bit of Arizona basketball now. We haven't talked about that in recent weeks. My question is this, Brad. I'm looking at this team right now, and what are your biggest question marks, and who do you think is the player that we don't know what they can do but might have the biggest upside as far as maybe surprising some people and maybe being that all-conference type guy?
My biggest question is consistent perimeter scoring, especially from the wing. Mm-hmm. Last year they had Matherin, who you could pencil in for 12 and you might get 30.
Right.
You had Terry, who could hit big shots. This year, and I just don't know. Could it be Pelle Larsson? Yeah. But to me, the two guys who could be all-conference players that we just don't know are Visser and Ball. Adama Ball might blow up.
Mm-hmm. There's very much that possibility he can, because, again, like we've talked about before many times, this is a player that came through here, and he came in as a 17-and-a-half-year-old. It's really popular now for people that are, to hold their kids back a year, hold their kids back 2 years, so they get on campus and they're a 20 or a 21-year-old freshman. Right now, I think that this is a team, or this is a player that he should be a freshman. He's got a full year in front of him. I could see him being a breakout guy. I really could.
Don't forget, he's also got a full year in the weight room, a full year in the culture, both basketball and just the culture of the United States.
Right.
So yeah, I think, and then he went back and played some big time ball for one of the, was it French under 18 teams. Mm-hmm. And Visser's kind of the same way. Visser is more of age. He's, let's go back. They were able to stash ball basically, no pressure.
Right.
And when he came in games, he scored. So he looks like a bucket to me, but I don't know. And then Visser, I just don't know how. I don't know how quickly he's going to adapt, and B, how much are they going to need him? Because if Ballo, who looks to be in even better shape, and he looked in good shape last year, he might be just a matchup nightmare that you can't keep off the floor. But if not, Visser, man, he looks good. He looks physically imposing. So if those two guys could even be and with different statistics, but what Koloko and Terry were, not even Matherin, then this Arizona team suddenly very frisky and interesting. Because again, you know what you're going to get at the bare minimum from Krisa. You know what you're going to get at the bare minimum from the Texas transfer. You know Pelle Larsson. And I think all those guys played better this year because Larsson played very well for Team Sweden. Turned a lot of heads with scouts. Chris Beard shackled what's his face?
Courtney Ramey. That's where I want to get to in a second. Yeah.
And then Kirk Krisa, although, we all know his limitations, he put up some impressive numbers for Estonia against better teams and better players. Now, do I wish he had hit that game winner he took? Yeah, but I think Larsson missed the game winner too. But, I mean, the guy went toe-to-toe, Jack John with Luca. You think he's going to be intimidated by whatever transfer guard Oregon's trotting out?
That showed me all I needed to see too. And it wasn't this fake kind of bravado. It was a bravado that, I know who you are, but I'm on the same basketball court as you. I found that very endearing right there. And like I said too, it wasn't fake bravado. It was you could just tell that was kind of how he was wired.
And he played well. I mean, again, Luca outscored him, I think 2-1. But Luca is possibly a top 3 player in the NBA.
Right.
And Kirk Krisa last year wasn't a top 3 player on his college team, and Kirk Krisa had 14. I think he had 5 or 6 assists, had a couple rebounds in a game that they ended up, I think, losing. But, again, Estonia is not one of the top 5 teams in Eastern Europe.
Right. Let's talk Courtney Ramey. You talked about him being shackled a little bit by Chris Beard. I agree with you. I think the numbers that he could put up at Arizona are far more indicative of his junior numbers, where he averaged about 12.5 points per game, chipped in 3 assists, and was one of the better defenders in the conference. Because again, Chris Beard runs a slow down style. I'm not bashing Chris Beard. I'm just telling you the way it is. He runs a slow down style. And Ramey, when you watch him, and again, I didn't watch a ton of Courtney Ramey, but he's pretty quick. The shot looks solid. I expect Ramey to be a solid player for Arizona, and I expect him to be one of the handful of 3 or 4 best players on this team. I really do.
Yeah, assuming Arizona plays at the same tempo they played last year, assuming Ramey is either in the starting lineup or the first guard off the bench, I don't think 10 to 14 is unreasonable.
Right.
Again, he was about a 12-point-a-game guy as a junior. Last year, I think he was about 9. Really, I think the only thing that hurts his scoring is are there going to be enough shots?
Right.
Because this is an Arizona team where most of the guys on the floor can put up, if you look at their top 8 or 9, maybe the only guy who's not getting legit offensive touches is Balo.
Right.
Because he does his best on putbacks and things like that. But everyone else can manufacture offense. But, just look at what Kyer did last year, but this is a better player, a better athlete, and he's probably going to play 8 minutes more a game.
And he's more proven. I know Kyer averaged 9 a game at Georgia, but Ramey was a 3rd-team all-conference player in the Big 12. So, in the Big 12 is one of the best conferences, one of the handful of best conferences in college basketball. So that's something you need to take into account. But I also think that he fits in well next to, I almost said Steve Kerr, next to Kirk Krisa, because, if I'm Arizona, I want Krisa to be able. The most important thing for me is for him to be able to get those shooting numbers up. There's no reason that he should be shooting 32% from 3 and 37% from the field. Just with that form and what we've heard, I don't think he's ever going to be a good defender. But I think that Courtney Ramey coming in here allows him to be able to guard those more dynamic players.
I'm not convinced Ramey doesn't wind up with the ball in his hands more running the point than Krisa. I think that's a very real possibility.
Right.
At the very least, we know Tommy Lloyd likes multiple ball handlers.
Right.
So assuming your starting lineup is Ramey, Krisa, and Larsson, you got 3 ball handlers. Ball played point guard in Europe. I don't think he's a point guard, but he's a guy who certainly you can run the offense through, like they did Dallin Terry at times. I don't want to put that kind of pressure on Ball because Terry was pretty spectacular as a point forward at times last year. But again, Krisa, I think this resembles a lot of the early loot teams where you didn't have, they didn't have a legit point guard really till Damon's senior year. It was always combo guard. If you remember, it was Kerr and
They didn't have a legit dominant point guard per se. Like you said, a lot of it was Matt Othics, it was Steve Kerr's, it was guys like that.
Well, Kerr played with I can't think of his name all of a sudden.
Craig McMillan?
McMillan, and both of them touched the ball quite a bit. Then you had the two Matts.
Right.
And they were combo guards. You throw on Loft and Gier. Then even when Damon came in, he was playing next to Khalid, who had the ball in his hands a lot. And really, if you look at the 94 team, you had 3 point guards on the floor.
Right.
So those were the loot teams. And that's what I think this team could end up being, where, yeah, Kirk Reese is the point guard. Yeah, he might have the most assists. But on nights where he's stroking it,
right,
Ramey's suddenly getting him involved. And vice versa. On nights where Ramey may have that matchup where he can just go to the hole, then you're running plays for him and letting Creasa just set him up on whatever it is, pick and roll, right. Slip screens, things like that.
Brad, have I told you about the DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX?
You tell me so much, I might tattoo it.
I was going to say, I actually know somebody who got a PHNX tattoo. So if I can get Brad to get a PHNX tattoo, it changes the equation. But here's the deal. The NFL season is here, and DraftKings Sportsbook app is hooking up all the fans. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $200 in free bets instantly. It's simple. You download the DraftKings Sportsbook and use code word promo PHNX and bet on an NFL team to win. And if your team wins is up by 10 at any point during the game, you get paid instantly, even if your team loses. That's promo code PHNX for the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right. Now, before we sign off here, Brad, I am still, even watching that Mississippi State game, going back to football, even watching that game, and I think Justin Kaufman made a great point here. He's put in back the A multiple times. Justin, we appreciate that. Tina in here as well, back the A. Sean, he's a Cougar, Saguaro Cougar. You can say bear down on, right? Back the A, Ray. I mean, that speaks for itself right there. But all I can say is this, is that yes, Arizona's 1-1, and yes, that they struggled against Mississippi State. But if you were to tell me that I would have watched these two, San Diego State and Mississippi State, and how Arizona played, and what I thought, I would have taken that every day, all day of the week before the season started.
Yeah, I mean, again, I come away disappointed because Arizona won? Sure. But I was also optimistic by things I saw, because I see a lot of fixable things. Right. And again, that might end up being a Mississippi State team that wins 8-9. I don't think they're
that could be a team that finishes in the top 15 in the country. They've got some players for sure.
Yeah, and again, they're a veteran team. Really, to me, the biggest thing you fear with Mississippi State, and this is one reason I thought Arizona might win, is just sometimes Leach's teams implode a game or two.
Right.
They're a lot like Rich Rod teams. Remember,
they are a lot like.
They'd string 2 or 3 wins together, then they go to UCLA and lose 56
lose by 48 points.
Yes. Yeah, suddenly couldn't get a first down, and yeah, so that might happen. But again, I think when you look at them, he's done a very nice job there in a program that is a, bottom third team typically in the SEC. And, when you combine what he's done, what Mark Stoops has done, what they're kind of doing at Arkansas, some of those teams are moving up, and, Tennessee's still stuck in neutral. Right. So it's an interesting league that gets way too much hype.
William, as always, really appreciate you hopping on. Where can they find your work?
Assuming the computer doesn't crash again, should have a podcast up today or tomorrow. It's on all the platforms, Apple, Spotify, Anchor. I think it's even on Google Podcast. If not, follow me at WSR Brad on Twitter, where I tweet mostly about U of A stuff, occasionally about other stuff, and post up all the links. And usually give Mike, I actually don't give you a really hard time on Twitter. We're pretty civil.
Yeah, no. I mean, Brad's the man. Brad appreciates simplicity from Mike Luke. So, again, as always, my man, appreciate you. Brad, always on Tuesday.
Here's what I want from my Mike Luke. I want a list. I want
a list. I want to know a random thing about,
and I want no singing.
And I want to know too, who do you think's better? They're a junior year Damon Stoudemire or a freshman year so and so? That's the questions you can get from Mike Luke randomly. But Brad,
an entire Vegas trip.
Yes. Can I get you to commit to being on the post game with Shu and myself this Saturday?
This one might be tough. We got baseball season starting, and Tyler's got a game at 7. So if I decide to actually sit down and watch the game, no. If I just get the score, then I'll hop on with you guys.
All right, my man. As always, dude, I appreciate you, bro.
But that Cal game, day game, should be on.
All right. He's Brad Alice. Follow him on Twitter at WSR Brad. I'm Mike Luke. Signing off. We will talk to you all tomorrow. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.